Hey there, it's Dave Altavilla for Hot Hardware, and what you're looking at here is a rather special Dell gaming notebook. In fact, it's so special that Dell branded it the G5 SE for Special Edition. What's actually really special about this new Dell gaming laptop, however, is its combination of AMD Ryzen 4000 series mobile processors coupled with AMD Radeon RX 5600M discrete graphics. Let's take you on a quick guided tour of this all AMD infused bad boy next. At first glance of the Dell G5 SE, you're struck with the machine's finish, which is what Dell calls supernova silver with iridescent accents. It's definitely a striking metallic silver finish that reflects light and color from its environment, and we think it looks pretty swank. But there's no question that's a subjective opinion. We can, however, definitively say that thankfully the G5 SE's finish does a really good job of resisting fingerprints. That said, though its finish inspires a sort of mystical unicorn dust kind of vibe, what's under the hood of this beast is where the magic really happens. In that regard, our machine is powered by an AMD Ryzen 7 4800H 8-core 16-thread mobile processor with integrated AMD Radeon graphics, and it has a base clock of 2.9 GHz and a boost clock of 4.2 GHz. Also available are Ryzen 5 4600H and Ryzen 9 4900H configurations of the G5 SE as well. For true graphics firepower, we're treated to an AMD Radeon RX 5600M discrete mobile GPU with 6 GB of GDDR6 memory on board. And also on board is a 512 GB PCI Express NVMe solid-state drive, 16 GB of DDR4 3200 MHz memory, a killer AX1650 802.11ax Wi-Fi 6 NIC, a 68 Wh/hour 4-cell battery, and a starting weight of about 5.5 pounds. All told, this config will retail for an MSRP of $1199 currently, but something tells us we'll see more competitive pricing in the days ahead as well. And getting back to the G5 SE's CPU and GPU, this Dell laptop features AMD SmartShift technology, thanks to its all-AMD configuration. SmartShift dynamically shares the thermal and power budgets of the machine to optimize the performance of the processing engine that needs it most, depending on the workload at hand. Traditionally, CPUs and GPUs operate on separate power budgets, but SmartShift essentially groups those resources into a single pool, dynamically shifting power to whichever needs it most at any moment in time. For gaming especially, this can mean optimal power distribution between the CPU and the GPU and the ability to wring out more overall performance. In addition, AMD SmartShift is always on and not something the user needs to monitor or tweak in any way. For I/O ports, there are copious options here with the G5 SE. On the right side are a wedge lock slot, 2 USB 3 ports, a combo headphone mic input, a standard SD card slot, and a speaker port. On the left side is a power port, a mini DP port, full-size HDMI 2.0, USB 3.1 Type-A port, a wired gigabit Ethernet RJ45 jack, a USB-C display port, and another speaker. Incidentally, audio output here is okay, but it's thin and lacking low end, so strap on those headphones, kids. The display option we have with our machine is a 15.6-inch 1080p LED backlit VA panel with a snappy 144 Hz refresh rate and 300 nits of brightness. Honestly, it's not the brightest display, but color accuracy, saturation, and uniformity are excellent. And viewing angles, even though it's a VA panel with anti-glare coating, are pretty solid as well. Later this summer, Dell will reportedly also offer FreeSync adaptive refresh rate options for the G5 SE. This Dell laptop's keyboard is a spacious typing deck with a full numpad and accented W, A, S, and D keys. Although its chiclet keycaps are a little too small and square for my liking, once you spend some quality time working with it and its large touchpad, you'll find it's a mostly comfortable experience. There's a bit of flex in the keyboard area as well, but again, not a showstopper. Finally, the entire keyboard is of course RGB backlit with the ability to control lighting with Dell's Alienware Command Center software, which also gives you control over overclocking and performance modes, along with temperature monitoring and other features. Finally, there's also Dell Game Shift, which can be invoked by hitting the F7 or G function key, which then kicks the system's fans and power profile into high gear, even on the fly in the middle of a game. This enables what Dell calls a dynamic performance mode that will let the CPU and GPU work harder and should have a measurable impact on frame rates, especially over extended gaming workloads. Things do get a bit noisy in Game Shift mode, however, and we observed about 49 dB of acoustic output under load in standard mode, along with 55 dB of output in Game Shift mode running at full blast. The G515 SE is also fairly serviceable via a few screws on its bottom cover. Here you get access to a couple of SODIMM slots for upgradable memory, the system's M2 storage slots, and even its Wi-Fi radio NIC. But what about those all-important frame rates and benchmarks? Gamers, you can officially get hyped because the Dell G515 SE is an affordable, portable gaming powerhouse. Fire up Shadow of the Tomb Raider at 1080p highest image quality preset, and we're treated to 68 frames per second in standard mode and about 73 frames per second in Dell Game Shift mode. Or how about serving up a beatdown to those crazy cult members of Far Cry 5? Our G515 SE puts up about 78 frames per second in standard mode at 1080p ultra quality settings, and it kicked out a couple more frames per second in Game Shift mode at 80 FPS. Finally, let's thin the horde in some gory Gears 5, shall we? Dell's G515 SE steps up guns blazing and dishing out over 80 frames per second in standard mode and nearly 85 frames per second in Game Shift mode at 1080p and on the high image quality preset. How you like me now? This ought to deal out the pain in the new gridiron mode for sure. And when it comes to battery life, the Dell G515 actually puts up respectable numbers for everyday chores when you're not gaming, and it lasted almost 6 hours in our HD video loopback test. However, fire up a game title and you're not going to want to stray too far from a wall socket. Think about an hour or so depending on how strenuous the game title you're playing might be. But regardless, make sure you stop by hothardware.com for our full review with lots more performance benchmarks and deep dive analysis. At $11.99 is configured and tested here, we really like Dell's new G515 SE. It's a stylish, well-built, all AMD gaming laptop at a reasonable price point, especially for the firepower it's packing, and it's Hot Hardware recommended. I'm Dave Altavilla for Hot Hardware with the new Dell G515 SE for Special Edition. Thanks for stopping by.